Hi, and welcome back to Grassroots Crypto, where I like to teach people about crypto. And in this video, I'm going to give a bit of an update with regards to the synths caps, savings, and POL. And I just really want to explain where things are at, what's the cap, what's the plan, what's happening with POL, and that type of thing. So this will be building on my video that I did here, THORChain, with regarding to yield bearing synths and POL. So if you haven't seen that video, do go see it. And probably one of the important things that I've noticed in the chats, that if you're not familiar with how synths work, then you might struggle with the savings, because savings is built on synthetics. Just as the quickest of recaps, when you make a synthetic, it's based off Rune, so that it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So you have to get 1 BTC worth of synthetic, you would need to have 1 BTC worth of Rune in order to mint it, and the redemption is just the opposite. You can take 1 Bitcoin, that will give you 1 synthetic Bitcoin here, minus the slip off the 2 swaps. And then the reverse is true. If you have one synthetic Bitcoin here, you're going to get 1 actual layer 1 Bitcoin on the way out. It's a 1-for-1 redemption, and it always will be. There's no leverage, hidden leverage, whatever some of the terms are coming up. It's literally 1-for-1 redemption on how things work when you're dealing with synthetics, whether it's just normal synthetics or they're sitting in the synth vault. It is collateralized within the pool, half asset, half Rune. And it is accounted for differently. Like I said, you can see my previous videos, I'll show you in a second. So as long as there's actual asset in the pool and ARBs can do what they need to do, the network will guarantee the redemption of your outstanding synthetics. So if you've got 1 outstanding synthetic, you always get your Bitcoin back. So that's synthetics, and that's been in live for 9 months. I think it was in the planning for 12 months. It's a well tested and solid feature. Now, I think there was the activation of synths. There was, you can see the code walk through. You can see more stuff on synths, the actual testing that was done, and you can see my entire synth series to understand more about how synthetics work, how they're collateralized, how the network guarantees a 1-for-1 redemption. So I do encourage that before, if you've got questions around the savers and how that works, it's all predicated on synthetics. So now let's have a look at how the savings is going. So there's a lot of talk about, well, what's going to happen when the caps are hit. So what that means, before I do that, is within the liquidity pool, you have a certain amount of synthetics, and the BTC pool is at about 21% now, and the current cap is 30%. So that will hit the cap. In my previous video, it was about 15%, but that's recently been increased to 30%. So when we go actually have a look at the synth side, so I'll go here and have a look at the synth side of the house. So we can see it's about 21.84%. And then when that hits 30%, no more synthetic BTC will be able to be minted, so you won't be able to add savings. And everyone's like, what's going to happen here, and what's going to happen with POL? So the current plan is to increase this synth cap to maybe, well, originally it was 50%, but then the nodes did 30%. But it can progressively increase this until it gets to, say, 50/60%, which is exactly what Son of Odin here said like a couple of hours ago. So that's the current plan. And do note that POL hasn't been activated yet. So this stuff that I talked about and how all this POL works with regards to the synth utilization, the savings, it hasn't been activated yet because it's just not needed. At the moment, it's all about learning and understanding where this cap should be before this is activated. So likely to see it to go to 50% if the nodes pass that. Obviously, it's a progressive thing. So you want to go to 30%, get some data, see how it looks, and then you want to move out to the 50% cap, and then you perhaps want to move to the 60-70% cap, and then move the POL, because then once you feel safe at this cap limit, whatever this cap limit may be, maybe it's 60%, then at that point you're happy with the leverage or the position that's within the pool with regards to liquidity providers, and understanding the liquidity providers that don't like this risk of IL that we talked about before can also just exit and they become a saver, so they can actually just jump ship. So then it's about building this lower portion, and that's where POL comes in to build this lower part. Also, as the synth increases, which creates a lot of swap, that builds the depth naturally anyway. And once you build this part, this bottom part, then obviously this part's going to be, because it's a proportion, is naturally going to move up. So that builds room. Anyway, so 1, get the natural cap. 2, initiate the POL. And then potentially 3, move the cap up a little bit more based off the data you've got, the risk you feel, depending on, you know, how many liquidity providers are there versus POL and everything else. Since this is new, it's a progressive thing to understand the data before moving on, so there's informed decisions rather than just, you know, jumping to conclusions. That's just a bit of a recap of where things are. The danger's going to be, so I did talk about the risk here, I think in my last video, is if this goes to say 80%, which I think, you know, is possible in time, you know, maybe in 6 months time. And then this, because of some major IL reason, you know, insert made up thing, this goes in a temporary zone, because, you know, generally impairment loss is temporary. It'll come back and it moves around all the time. So just say the synthetics actually outgrows the pool. So the synthetic now is, say, 102% of the actual liquidity pool, which means that's a bad thing. Now, your fractional reserve, but what does that mean if someone wants to get back the liquidity? So this scenario is actually given out by Lena here. And you're going to get back your L1 asset as described previously, even though the synthetic utilization may be over the pool. POL, if this were to happen, let's say it were to happen, worst case, POL, which would counteract this and move this particular this particular utilization back within the cap range. It's just the way that is designed. Once it's activated, it's not fast moving. It doesn't dump a whole bunch of liquidity into the pool at once. So it would take, you know, maybe take a day or so for it to actually like kick in, because it calculates and moves per block. But it won't be putting, you know, like 1,000 or 1,000,000 Rune in at once. It's going to trickle it in as described in my previous video here. Right, so that's just a bit of a recap. Something to watch is this particular setting here, this max synth per pool depth, which is currently set to 30%. You can have a look at the mirror settings here to find out what it actually is. And then you'll likely see that a push or a campaign to move that to 50%, 60% to a point where node operators feel comfortable. See where that's at. Once it hits the cap or approaches it, then you might see a campaign for POL to be activated, which means that the lower part of that pool would be increased in order for to push this back up. To say if this is, I don't know, 50% and this is a 60% cap, as because it's a ratio, if you put a whole bunch in here, that's obviously going to push that up. I hope you found that useful. Put any questions, comments in the section below, in the comment section below, and I will get around to answering them. If there's, you know, more videos you want to see about understanding what's happening within the network, parts you're not sure of, put them in there as well. I can always make quick videos that explain these things, because I feel that pictures are much better than trying to, you know, discuss things on Discord. All right, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time, thanks. Bye.